Hey guys, welcome to the first Yodeck webinar. Today we are joined by Sami and Alex, two great designers here at Yodeck. With Yodeck digital signage, you can either upload your pre-created designs or you can create layouts for your signs within Yodeck with our free layout editor tool. Today we will be discussing all things design and give you some top tips about making your digital signs more engaging and visually appealing. We will dive into the theory of design to help you understand what will work best for you and how you can create your own digital signage layouts that will get everyone staring. Welcome, Sami and Alex.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi, Emily.
How are you guys today?
We're good, and you?
Great.
Perfect, good, thank you. And so would you like to introduce yourselves for us?
Yes, of course. This is a mic, right?
No.
I am Sami. I'm 30 years old. I am the lead marketing designer at Yodeck. I have roughly 8 to 9 years of experience, mainly in concept, art direction, and graphic design in general.
Very nice, very impressive.
And I'm Alex. I'm 26 years old. I'm also a graphic designer at Yodeck. And yeah, I like illustrations. I like all the different things.
Perfect, very nice. So first, give us some tips on how to get started in design. Let's start with the basics. For someone that knows nothing, where do we start?
Well, from someone that knows nothing, I would say you first have to learn the fundamentals of design, the whole theory of graphic design, let's say. For example, how to use typography, how to use the colors, or how to take care of safe areas. If we take the example of typography, you always have to make sure that you use readable fonts. And for colors, that your palette is very cohesive, you're in line with the brand guidelines of the brand. And when you design for digital signage, you always have to make sure to use the areas as safe as possible. For example, maybe avoid putting important information in the corners and stay within the center.
So Alex, how did you get started in design?
So for me, was watching other people's work. That's what got me inspired. But then I tried to imitate it and I hit a wall. That's when I knew I had to study fundamentals, lights, shapes, colors. And yeah, from then it's just constant practice. You know, in design you have to just keep evolving.
Yes. So can you give us some basic tips for anyone that wants to design digital signage content? What do they need to know?
Okay, before you start designing something, you need to collect some information. For example, what's the brief? What's the purpose of the design? What's the target group? You know, when you have all that collected, then you can start doing some research, collecting reference. Then you start doing some drafts, and at some point when you're happy, you can go around and ask for feedback. Once you get that feedback, you can do some refining based on that, and you got yourself some final result.
Nice, nice. So Sami, can you share any specific tools that you find particularly useful in your design process?
Yeah, of course. You know, every designer uses different tools, of course. I can only speak about myself. And of course, every tool has its own purpose. So I don't think there is one tool that can do everything. I personally use the Adobe Creative Suite. I love the Adobe Creative Suite actually, and specifically Photoshop and Illustrator. Many people nowadays, of course, use Figma for the design, especially when it comes to web design. I don't work a lot with web design, so I don't use it that often, but of course it's very important. And let me see, what else do we generally use? I think that's it. Of course, if you have to design for motion, if you do motion design, you then have to use Adobe Premiere or Adobe After Effects.
Okay. And how do you guys approach a new project?
Should I answer that?
Yeah, of course.
I think that really depends on the use case, but in general, keep the message clear and short. use big font sizes, high contrast colors, so it's easily readable. That's very important. Also, it's very effective to use some subtle animations and things like that that move around to capture the audience's attention.
So what are some of the most common challenges faced as a designer, and how do you overcome them?
I'll take this one. Challenges, that's a very good question. It depends really where you work and what you do. What kind of designer are you? What kind of background? I can only speak from my experience right now, and from the past, of course. I think deadlines has been the most challenging thing for me, and having to work with very, very tight deadlines, and especially if you're like an anxious person like me in general, it is a very big challenge. So what I've learned and what I advise any other person that struggles with deadlines is to organize your time as much as possible. And it helps me to do a thorough research in the beginning in order to have a clear idea of what I want to design and what kind of style I want this design to be. Because if you find yourself in a creative block later, and if you have a very tight deadline, maybe it's gonna become a problem.
Okay,
So,
yes,
always organize your time as much as you can.
and research.
Yeah.
Nice. And so how do you guys stay up to date with the latest design trends? Are there any platforms or channels, resources that you use to make sure you're always on top of the latest trends?
So I think it's something that differs for everyone from designer to designer. For me personally, I like to scroll on Instagram and on accounts I follow. Also Behance is a great site with some amazing works to draw inspiration from. For me, it's also very important to take a course on things that draw my interest from time to time. Yeah.
That's good advice, yes. And how do you ensure that your designs are user-centered and meet the need of your target audience?
That's a difficult question. Well, in the beginning, it's very important to do a thorough research mainly on the target audience, but also on the industries that your users are. After that, of course, you design based on that research. You implement what you've learned, and I think as you go along, it is important to keep doing usability tests to ensure that your product is actually working.
And why do digital signage designs matter? Simply put.
Think of digital signage as a multi-purpose tool. That's how I think of it, because you can do so many things with it. I think they matter, the digital signs, because you can communicate a message very, very clearly and engage with your users. You can communicate your vision, for example, or make a customer like your product. So I think, it's a very, very modern and effective way to communicate with people.
Yes, yeah. And how would you balance the aesthetic appeal with the functional considerations in digital design?
Can I take this question too?
Sure.
Well, that's a really interesting question, because people think of graphic designers as artists sometimes, and that they make things pretty. And that's not the case. We are here to make things pretty, of course, but we always have to be careful to make them functional as well. So a good way to keep that balance is, I don't know if you mentioned it before, but make sure that you always use readable fonts and the message is very clear. And when you're working with colors, again, make sure you're in line with your brand identity and you use colors that are accessible to the viewer. But of course, you have to use the design fundamentals to make everything aesthetically pleasing. But that's not the only thing you have to take care.
Yes, yeah, it's not about just making the screens look pretty, they have to be clear, easy to read, easy to view. Yes,
yeah, because it's another way to communicate, as we said earlier, digital signs. So yeah, make sure you have everything clear and simple.
And how can you balance creativity with maintaining the brand identity in digital signage?
So brand identity is going to be the base in your every design, but every now and then you're going to have to convey a message in a different way, and you're going to just have to break out of the norm. So I believe, for me at least, that's where creativity comes in.
Ah, nice, yeah. So how do you optimize content for different viewing angles and distances in diverse environments?
So to better optimize your designs for longer distances and weird angles, you're going to have to follow some basic accessibility guidelines, like short messages, big font sizes, high contrast colors.
So now let's talk about specific industries. Can you tell us some of the best practices when it comes to designing content for industries such as internal communications, education, restaurants?
I don't think the theory of design changes when you design for specific industries. I think that, of course, the content changes, and it's maybe that some design practices change. For example, it's different when you design for a 7-year-old in a school environment, let's say, and different when you design for an adult at a restaurant who's hungry. Of course, for the 7-year-old, you have to use, more vibrant colors to grab their attention. Of course, the language is going to change. So I cannot give you tips specifically per industry. All I can say is that the target audience, of course, you have to be mindful of the target audience that you design.
Yeah. So you do your research to the target audience of that industry and take it from there.
Yes.
Design based on their needs.
Yes.
Nice. So how do you brainstorm your ideas for digital signage content? Can you give us some of your own creative ideas?
So more often than not, our clients come up with great ideas for specific use cases. Other times we just do research for specific industries. Personally, I try to imagine myself as part of a specific target audience and what would my digital needs be.
Sounds good, yeah. How would you ensure that digital signage content is accessible to individuals with diverse needs or abilities?
That's a very good question. I think that if we talk in terms of typography, for example, you always have to use bigger fonts. Make sure that your message is clear and can be read from a very big distance. When we talk about colors, make sure that you use high contrast colors. What does that mean? For example, yellow on white or white on yellow won't work very well. So make sure you create color combinations that can be read well.
Can you give us some examples of these color combinations? Which colors work well together?
For example, for sure, if you combine a dark color with a bright color, they're gonna work perfectly. So if we have a blue button and you use white font, a dark blue button and you use white font, it's gonna be readable most of the times. And vice versa. If you have a white button, if you use dark blue color, it's gonna be readable. So yeah, that's about colors. If you use videos, make sure that they're captioned. You use clear captions with a big typography again. So people with this kind of disabilities can read the captions. And I think at the end of the day, make sure always to have some people around to test your designs. It's very important, to take a design with you and go to people around you and ask, can you read these? Can you see it clearly? Or if it's a video, how does it sound? It's very important to do those tests at the end.
Yes, yeah, makes sense, yeah. Thank you so much for your time, guys. Your information was very useful. I hope you had a good time.
Thank you very much, Emily.
Thank you, Emily.
Bye-bye.
Bye. What topic should we cover in our next webinar? Leave a comment below and follow us on social media for latest updates and information about our future webinars.